All right, good morning. I hope everybody had a wonderful fall break. It's Monday, and we didn't do book talks last week, so I have a whole lot of books to talk about. I'm going to try to be as quick as I possibly can, so please bear with me. I read 12 books over the break. One was an audiobook. I don't think I talked about this before. American Housewife by Helen Ellis. It is short stories, and they are hilarious. It's marketed towards adults, but I don't think there's anything in there that would bother any teenagers, so I probably will be buying it for the library. But I do recommend to check out the audiobook from Reads if you have a chance, because sometimes books like this are extra funny when you listen to them, so check that one out. The second book that I read was Frost Like Night, and it's the conclusion to a trilogy that starts with Snow Like Ashes, and we have all three of them here in the library now, so if you want to read the whole trilogy, they're here. I'm not going to go into too great of detail on that one because it's the end of a trilogy. If you read the first book, you're probably going to want to read the third book. If you hadn't read any of them, come on down and I'll explain the series to you, but I'm not going to do it here. I also read Zeros by Scott Westerfeld. I've read everything that Scott Westerfeld has done, so when I realized I hadn't read this, I had to pick it up. Margot Lanigan and Deborah Biancotti, I don't know how to say that, they also participated in the creation of this book, and it's kind of like a group of not really superheroes, but kids that have powers, and I believe they were all born in the year 2000. That's where the Zeros comes from. But they have things like, one is called Bellwether, and he's a natural leader. He can draw people's attention and focus them on a particular goal. There's a person who they call Scam, who has like another consciousness voice inside of him that can persuade people to do things and basically get him out of sticky situations. There's a girl named Crash who can basically shut down electronics and things like that. But it's a very unique story. I really enjoyed it. It is kind of big, but it's spaced out, so it's not too terribly dense, but it's good. And I just ordered the second book in the series, so that'll be here soon. Speaking of second books in series, this one is the sequel to Magonia, and I don't think this is going to be a trilogy. I think this is the only other book in the series, but Magonia was set on Earth, but there are beings that live in the sky above Earth, in the atmosphere, in airships, who occasionally come to Earth and scavenge for food. Sometimes people fall off of those ships, and they are not quite humans. They have difficulty breathing in our atmosphere, and the main character is one of these people, one of the Magonians. I'm not going to tell you too terribly much about it, except that it was great. There's lots of action, lots of magic, a little bit of love, and very humorous as well. I really enjoyed this series. This one, The Here and Now, is about time travel. Just really quickly, it's not a very long book. It did move fairly quickly. The premise of the story is that something terrible has happened in the future, and we have figured out how to go back and colonize the past. Okay, but once you go back, this group of immigrants has come to the past, and there's all these rules they have to follow. Like, they can't do anything that's going to change the future. They can't go to the doctor because people might figure out that they're not the same as people living in this present time. They're not allowed to fall in love with people that are time natives, things like that. There's all kinds of rules, and of course, if there's rules in a book like this, somebody's going to break them. So it's brand new. It's going in the library today, so check it out if you want to. I also read this. This book is gay. This is a sex ed book, so yeah, there's a little bit of sex in there. But it was very informative and very candid and very, I thought, perfectly acceptable. Gay people exist, gay kids exist, so if you're interested, come check it out. Princess saves herself in this one. This is poetry. Just bought it for the library. You notice that little heart-shaped one, that was cute. I read this as part of the readathon I did on Saturday as well. I don't know why I didn't expect it to be dark. I mean, it's the cover itself is dark, but it was also hopeful, very girl power, talked about issues of body image, family, relationships, things like that. If you like poetry, you probably might enjoy it. I don't know. Come and look at it. Also, during the readathon, I read both of these. These are from the public library. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to buy it here or not. It was pretty gruesome. It is about this creepy house where the main character's father grew up. And there is definitely a lot of stuff to do with keys in it. Let's see, the family ends up moving to this house because the father is murdered. Okay, the father is murdered, so the mother and her 3 kids go to live in his family home. That's where they were supposed to go if anything happened to him. And the murder and gruesome, horrible things don't stop there. It was very, very creepy. If you like ghosts, if you like horror, then you would probably like it. And the second is just more of the same thing. Finally, the last book that I read over the break, this was after my readathon. I didn't really talk about the readathon, but I talked about it in last Thursday's tip video, so you can go watch about that if you want. The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. I really, really, really liked this book. I read this book all in one day on Sunday after the readathon was over, and it's about a girl whose older sister was sexually assaulted and murdered before the book opened. Okay, her father had left the family before that. Her mother drinks all the time now, but she has kind of isolated herself. She reads a lot. She doesn't really interact with other people, but she starts doing this senior year experience where she goes and works at an animal shelter, and she starts talking to this girl who everybody calls PK because she's a preacher's kid, and they develop a friendship, and she kind of helps her come out of her shell a little bit, meet some people. There's a love interest. The book itself goes back and forth between these different people's perspectives. You hear from Alex, who is the girl whose sister was murdered, and that's how a lot of people see her, is she's the girl with the dead sister, you know. So things have been kind of uncomfortable and awkward for a while, not to mention the fact that she has killed someone herself. The main character has. She knows what it's like to murder somebody. She kind of feels at parts of the book like something's wrong with her, which, you know, I mean, if you're murdering somebody, something is kind of a problem. But there's more to it than that. I really like the way that Mindy McGinnis writes. I've read a lot of her other stuff, and she's just a really good author. She can definitely turn a phrase. The language is great. There's a lot of action, a lot of girl power, a lot of fighting rape culture and things like that. Talking about girls standing up for other girls, and it was just really a great read, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody that you like funny books, you like action, you like, you know, girls kick a butt. It was a really good story. So that was called Female of the Species, and I think that's it. So have a nice day. If you want to check any of this stuff out, just come on down. I'm going to be putting it in the catalog today. We've got a bunch of other new stuff. We're going to talk about some of this new stuff in our tip video on Thursday, so we'll see you then.